We are good. Okay, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. All right, we got it though. We got it. Camera on. Fix this a little bit. That you in the stream? Or do we have a viewer?
No, it's not me.
Excellent. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. We're a couple minutes behind. That looks good. Everything looks good. Let me turn the light real quick. Get some good light on us. In this general direction. A little bit more light. Yeah, there we go. All right. We are here. I'm here today with my buddy Nate.
What up?
And we're going to do a podcast on Nostradamus. I set up a little swagway, whatever you want to call it, for us. Imagine someone writing a short, cryptic poem in the 1500s. And hundreds of years later, people claim that poem predicts the rise of Hitler, or the 9/11 attacks, or global pandemics. That's the legacy of Nostradamus. Welcome to the show, guys, and we are going to be going through the prophecies of Michael de Nostradamus, better known as Nostradamus, a man who has been called everything from a fraud to a genuine seer. His writings have fascinated kings, terrified commoners, inspired conspiracy theories, and sparked debates that are still going on centuries later. But before we get into the lost predictions, let's start with something simple. Why do people keep turning back to Nostradamus every time the world feels uncertain or uneased? Think about the moments in your life when something chaotic or world-shaking happened, a war breaking out, a terrorist attack, or global pandemic. In those moments, many people search for meaning. They want signs, explanations, or patterns. And if they can't find those answers in the present, they often look to the past or different prophecies. That's where Nostradamus kind of made himself present. In the mid 1500s, this French astrologer and physician published hundreds of short poetic verses, the quatrains. I can't pronounce it. I don't know how it's pronounced. Quatrains, I think is how it is. That seemed to speak of great fires, powerful rulers, and terrible wars, and future disasters. The language was vague but powerful. Over time, his words became a canvas on which each generation projected its fears and hopes. But here's the real question we're going to explore in this episode. Was Nostradamus actually predicting future events, or are we really good at just reading the future? In his words, he wants to say that he knows basically the future, but is it just patterns? Is it all just pattern recognition? Do we just keep repeating history? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today with my buddy Nate over here. And we're going to figure it out, dude. We're going to crash into Nostradamus and figure it all out, dude.
Yeah.
First of all, how was your day? Before we really do a deep dive, let's ease into it a little bit. How was your day?
Wasn't too bad. Was not too bad.
You had the day off today, so
Yeah. Yep.
got to relax a little.
Yeah. Nope. Slept in a little bit and shit.
That's good. That's good. I was gonna say my day was all right. It was a Friday, so I knew getting out of work, I would be able to go home, relax, and I knew I had this podcast prep for today, so I was nervous because I didn't really prep anything for this. You brought the topic to me, actually. This is your topic that you wanted to have. And 2 hours, 3 hours before this started, I had to brain rot the internet and just search for shit and use ChatGPT to help me. So a little stressful, but I'm glad that I'm here, able to do this today. I wasn't sure how productive I was going to be after work, and I'm glad I was. So I have his early life and like his childhood, I guess you could call it, and like teenage years into adulthood. Um, so I'll go into a biography on that. Nostradamus was born Michael de Nostradam on December 14th, 1503, in the town of Saint Remy de Provence in southern France. His family background was unique for the time. They were originally Jewish but converted to Catholicism to avoid persecution during the Inquisition. His grandfather, Guy Gassenet, converted and took the name Nostradame, which comes from the Latin for Our Lady.
Hmm. Okay.
This dual heritage, both being both part of mainstream society but also having roots outside it, shaped Michael's worldview and education. He grew up in a time of enormous cultural change. The Renaissance was spreading through Europe. New ideas about science, religion, and the cosmos were challenging old beliefs. That must be a wild time to grow up in, honestly. Like,
yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
the Renaissance era, like, they all, like, believe in one thing, and then, like, there's a bunch of philosophers that come around and they start challenging your ideas. And, like, I don't know. It just must have been weird. You must have looked at them as like
You're
crazy
crazy,
people.
yeah.
You're a crazy man,
Get
dude.
outta
The
here.
world isn't round; it's flat. We
You're-
already know. We already have mapped it out, dude.
You're drunk. Get out of here.
Treat him like a druggie. Yeah, it's so fascinating. So Michael received an excellent education. He learned Latin, Greek, and Hebrew mathematics,
I was gonna say.
astronomy, and classic literature. He briefly attended the University of Avignon, Avgonia, Avgonon,
Let me see.
Avignon, Avignon, right there, Avignon. Second line,
Avignon.
Avignon,
I'd say Afghanon.
Avignon.
Because the I in there.
He briefly attended the University of Avignon, but his studies were cut short when the plague struck the region. Later, he enrolled at the University of Montpellier, one of Europe's most leading medical schools, where he trained as a physician. The world around him was unstable. France was caught between religious tensions, plague outbreaks, and wars. It was a time when people desperately sought explanations for suffering. Astrology wasn't a fringe belief. It was considered a serious way to understand both human health and world events. So a lot of that had to do with like the cycles of the moon. They believed like when this is where the myths of like the werewolves come out during the full moon. Actually, this is because of Nostradamus. He used to have beliefs that when the full moon would come out, plague illness would actually increase, which is super fascinating and so weird. But that developed into the study or the myths of werewolves and stuff like that, and how like people go crazy during a full moon. That's all because of Nostradamus. They believed that the moon and the way the planets align had different things to do with that. You got anything to say on any of that? Anything that ties to his youth, at least? I have a feeling a lot of your parts are gonna come into his like predictions in his later life.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got. I didn't really get.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Like, so he was going through like his college or high school, whatever it was at the time. There's wars between France and stuff like that. There's a plague. Like, imagine going to high school during that time and shit like that. It's a wild time.
I know his grandpa was a rabbi and shit, so I know that like influences.
A rabbi?
Yeah.
A Jewish rabbi?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I seen something about his grandfather up here. I read it. Yeah, his grandfather Guy Gassenet converted and took the name Nostradam, which comes from the Latin for Our Lady. That's the only thing I know about his grandfather. But you said he was a rabbi?
Yeah.
That's cool. So he really was about that faith, bro.
Mm-hmm.
He really was about that.
So it probably influences like educational path and shit like that.
In a sense, I'm sure. I would imagine that grandpops had a huge influence on his life, you know?
Yeah, I would say what I was reading up on was particularly in relation to the astrology and mysticism.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Um, so part three that I wanted to talk about with Nostradamus. So he's like basically he transforms after high school and becomes a seer. What you don't know what if you don't know what that is, it's like a prophet or a like a person who can see into the future essentially. So after studying medicine, Michael de Nostradam spent years traveling through plague ridden towns trying to heal the sick. He was known for his unusual methods. Instead of bloodletting, which was common at the time, he encouraged patients to keep clean, use fresh air, and take herbal remedies. His methods often worked better than traditional treatments, which made him respected, even a little famous. So, I'm going to backtrack a little because I actually know what this is. We talked about bloodletting, which is basically if you were sick or you had an infection or even if you had the flu, what they do is they would have you basically they'd sit you in a seat that's reclined so your feet are down here where my fingertips are and you're at an angle. And what they do is they'd cut the bottoms of your feet from the top of the sole to the bottom and they'd let the blood seep out because they thought that the disease was in the blood.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, people are getting dizzy and fucking dying because of it. Because, you can cut an artery by doing that in your foot. So they don't understand medical science, but he's starting to come around now, basically, and be like, nah, this bloodletting thing ain't it. And he's like giving people herbal medicines and trying to align people with the cosmos and thinks that's some type of medicine better than, which, I mean, I guess it is in a sense. You're not fucking draining the blood out of somebody. Like, it's a good idea in theory if you don't know anything about disease, I guess, but so it was making him actually a little famous because of this. Like he was very popular for his healing methods. But tragedy ended up striking as it usually does for our young heroes. Around 1538, his wife and two young children died suddenly, most likely from the plague. Nostradamus had been away when it happened, so he wasn't even there for his wife and kids when they died, which is probably really hard as a man. So sorry, I lost my Nostradamus had been away when it happened, but when he returned, they were gone. Worse, his failure to save them, despite being a physician, shattered his public image. Some sources say he was even accused of heresy or professional negligence, forcing him to leave the region. So he actually got casted away because of the fact that his kids and wife died. And they looked at him as a fraud, basically. Like, you coward, you fake. Your family died. And look at you now. Like, how awful is that? Like, dude, I would leave too. I wouldn't even want them to make me leave. I'd leave willingly. I'd be like, you guys are terrible people. For the next several years, he wandered through France, Italy, and possibly parts of Eastern Europe. We don't know every stop he made, but these travels became a kind of intellectual pilgrimage. During this time, he is believed to have immersed himself in esoteric knowledge, astrology, alchemy, and the mystical writings that circulated through the Renaissance. The Renaissance intellectual circles. Sorry, so he was going around to all the intellectual circles, learning all different types of like things during the Renaissance era, all throughout Europe. This was also known as this was also the period when ideas from ancient Greece, the Arab world, and the Hebrew Kabbalah were being rediscovered and blended with Christian mysticism. Nostradamus absorbed all of it. So he wasn't picking his like faction. He's not a Jew. He's not a Christian. He wants all of the information he can obtain, which is like a scientific way to go about things. Honestly, I respect that.
I agree.
When he finally returned to southern France, he began publishing almanacs,
Hmm.
yearly booklets that mixed practical information like harvest times, weather forecasts, and astronomical predictions about political events. These were a hit. They made a household name among educated writers. So this is kind of where his like prophecies started coming into play when he started writing the almanacs. The success of his almanacs paved the way for something much bigger. His collection of prophetic quatrains, the quatrains or the quatrains. He shifted from being a physician and astrologer to a figure of mystery, a man whose words claimed could reach centuries into the future. This transformation wasn't overnight. It was built on grief, study, wandering, and the ability to read the cultural hunger for prophecy. What do you think about any of that? You got anything to say? Anything you want me to keep going? I
Um,
find it fascinating that,
it's a
like,
little weird almost, but yeah.
what?
No, it's just certain parts of it. I don't know, like you wouldn't think.
Talk to me.
You just like you wouldn't think that's how it would like go down.
I find it fascinating that, like, I like the fact that, like, a lot of these like famous people in history come from like these hard situations, bro. Like, it's just fascinating. Like, so I like, what if his wife and kids didn't die?
Yeah, probably
You
wouldn't.
think he would have done all this? Like, probably not. Like,
He might have, but because like they didn't die, he wouldn't have gone into it right away. So he wouldn't have been like
it wouldn't
excess.
have been as excessive. You know what I mean?
It
Like,
wouldn't have been like
this
so.
made Nostradamus. Like, and it's almost kind of like a way to look at history and be like, dude, like bad things, excuse me, might happen, but it could be for the right reasons. It could be the building blocks to something fucking beautiful.
Mm.
And it like looking at that, it really makes me like appreciate the bad times I've had personally. So, writing methods and style. So, to understand why Nostradamus' writings have lasted so long, we have to look at how he wrote. In the in okay, so this is going to be tough. In 1555, he published the first installment of Les Prophéties,
Yep.
which would eventually include 942 quatrains. Short, four lines, four line verses arranged in groups called centuries. At first glance, they look poetic but puzzling. There's no clear timeline, there's no dates, and no linear narrative. He doesn't write in the year 16,066, London will burn. Instead, he uses imaginary symbols and wordplay that can be read in multiple ways. So it's up to interpretation, which makes it kind of interesting.
I was gonna say that was kind of his style was like ambiguous and open to interpretation.
Yeah, open to interpretation is very ambiguous, 100%. His language choices were deliberate. He blended French, Latin, Greek, and Occitan, the regional language of southern France. He even inverted words or twisted existing ones. This severed several purposes, and I actually went into the purposes of why he might do this. So, ambiguity as protection. Openly predicting the fall of kings or religious turmoil could have gotten him arrested or executed. By wrapping his meanings in layers of poetic and logistical puzzles, he could claim innocence if questioned. So it was like a way to keep him safe from the law, the kings, like if he tried to question them, right? Number two, astrological foundations. Nostradamus believed history followed celestial cycles. Many quatrains are based on planetary alignments, eclipses, and conjugations. He studied astronomical tables to forecast how certain configurations might repeat historical patterns. Let me say that again because I messed it up. He studied astronomical tables to forecast how certain configurations might repeat historical patterns. For example, if certain conjugation occurred during a past war, he might predict that a similar conjugation would signal another war in the future. So let's say world just as a hypothetical, this isn't true. Let's say World War II happened when Mars, Earth, and Venus were all in a straight line. He's basically saying when they line up again, we're gonna have another big world war. Kind of like that, basically, is like a summed up way of talking about it. So number three, symbolism over specificities. He uses metaphors like lions, eagles, great fires, the new city, or the two brothers torn apart to describe events. These symbols were familiar to Renaissance readers, but vague enough to apply to many situations later in history. For instance, the eagle could refer to the Holy Roman Empire, Napoleon, or even the United States. Could be a lot of different things.
Honestly, I have like a little list of like the fucking like some of the predictions he makes. So you want me to list them off real quick?
So you can go into yours. That's actually going to be my next part, but let me close this real quick. So that was the symbolism, and the number four, nonlinear structure. He deliberately avoided chronological order. If you don't know what that means, it means from going like from the time of the Big Bang to like today, basically. You're going from the time everything happened in order of when it happened. That's chronological order. So he avoids chronological order. This disorientation makes it almost impossible to build a fixed timeline for his prophecies. Events are scattered, which encourages selective interpretation. Finally, it's important to remember Nostradamus wasn't sitting in a candlelit room having cinematic visions of future wars. He was analyzing history, celestial cycles, and political trends, then encoding those into layered poetic predictions. His method was part astronomy, part wordplay, and part cultural awareness, and part deliberate mystery. So, do you want to go into his predictions? And then if you have one of them before you go into the description, I'll let you know I have that. And then you go into your description and I'll tell you what I have on it.
Mm.
All right. So what's your first one?
So the first one that I had noted down was the Great Fire of London in 1666.
Yeah, I do have that. That's my number four. So go ahead. Tell me about the Great Fire. I'm interested. What do you
So
got?
I didn't really go into like details on it like that.
Okay.
No, yes, I was. But what I did write down for was some interpreters quatrains as predicting that like catastrophic event.
You're gonna have to speak up a little bit, bud.
So, okay. It was the Great Fire of London, and then what I wrote down for that is like some interpreters quatrains as predicting it. Then the next one I have is the French Revolution, 1789. Nostradamus' writings are often linked to the upheaval and turmoil of that period. The other one I have is World War II, like you were talking about earlier. The other one I have that you said too was the rise of Napoleon and Hitler.
Yeah, I have a couple of these. Yeah.
And then I have also the 9/11 attacks.
I have that as well.
Yeah.
So I'll go into detail on some of these. So the first one, I actually didn't hear you say this. The death of King Henry II, he predicted. One quatrain describes a young lion overcoming an older one, piercing his eye through a golden cage and causing a cruel death. A few years later, King Henry II of France died during a jousting match when a lance splintered through his helmet and entered his eye. This incident made Nostradamus famous at the royal court and cemented his reputation as a true seer. So this was like really the first instance where his predictions came to light and it came true. This was big for him. This was like huge. The rise of Napoleon, you had mentioned that. Some quatrains mention an emperor born near Italy who would rise to power in France. People later applied this to Napoleon Bonaparte. Is that how you say it? Bonaparte?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Napoleon Bonaparte who was born in Corsia. I think that's how you say it. Corsica? Corsica? Corsica. But the verses are vague and could fit multiple figures. So it's not necessarily predicting him, but a lot of people think it is. So, Hister or Hitler, a famous quatrain mentions Hister, Hister, is the name he mentions. Hister, which many believed referred to Hitler. In reality, Hister is the Latin name for the lower Danube River. The connection to Hitler was made centuries later, often by people looking for prophetic proof. So, it had to do with the Danube River, I guess. But a lot of people think that he was talking about Hitler, which is pretty interesting. The Great Fire of London, you mentioned, in 16,066. One quatrain refers to London burning by fire. In 3 times 20 plus 6 is the quote. In 3 times 20 plus 6, which many interpreted as the year 16,066. While this seems close, predicting fires in crowded wooden cities wasn't uncommon, and the language is open to interpretation. And number 5, the 9/11 attacks in 2001. Fake Nostradamus verses spread online, claiming he predicted the attack on the World Trade Center. These were proven to be modern fabrications, but demonstrated how easy his style could be imitated. His style can be imitated and adapted to modern fears. So, misinterpretations and human bias. Centuries of analytics have shown that Nostradamus' reputation relies heavily on how humans interpret his words, not necessarily what he originally intended. One of the most important concepts here is postdiction, or after the fact prediction. This means people find a prophecy that seems to match an event after it has already happened. For example, when the Great Fire of London occurred in 16,066, people combed through his writings and found a verse that fit, but nobody had been waving that verse around before the fire, warning Londoners to be careful. Then there's confirmation bias. This is when people naturally focus on the hits and ignore the misses. Out of 942 quatrains, only a fraction are linked to well-known historical events, and often loosely, the vast majority are vague, obscure, and never fulfilled in any obvious way. But people don't talk about those. They highlight the few that seem impressive. Translation drift adds another layer. Over centuries, his quatrains have been translated and retranslated and retranslated and retranslated many, many times.
Like the Bible.
A single word can change meaning depending on a translator's bias. For example, Hester, which originally referred to the lower Danube, was interpreted in the 20th century as Hitler. Subtle changes in the wording can completely alter the perceived target of a prophecy. And then there's the issue of forgeries and fabrications, especially during crises like World War II or 9/11. Entirely fake quatrains have been written and spread as lost prophecies. The internet has only made this easier. Someone writes a fake verse, says it in a Nostradamus style, posts it, and it spreads because people want to believe it and find a reason for what's going on in history. These misinterpretations reveal more about human psychology than Nostradamus himself. We have a deep desire to find order in chaos, to believe that someone somewhere saw it coming. And Nostradamus provides the perfect blank canvas for us to put our ideas onto.
Facts.
Modern culture impact is number 7. Nostradamus' influence didn't end with the Renaissance. In fact, it grew stronger over time, and his name became a kind of cultural shorthand for prophet. During World War II, both Allies and the Nazis used Nostradamus in propaganda. The Nazis circulated fake quatrains claiming he predicted German victories to boost morale and intimidate enemies. In response, British intelligence hired astrologers and writers to produce counter prophecies, predicting Hitler's defeat using Nostradamus' name. His words were literally used as a psychological weapon. How fucked up is that? Dude was trying to bring
It's
peace and
hilarious.
his poetic insights on the world were used as a weapon, dude. So wild. And in the modern era, his popularity spikes during crises, actually. So after events like 9/11 in 2004, oh, I'm sorry. After events like 9/11, the 2004 tsunami, or the COVID-19 pandemic, Nostradamus trends online. People share verses, sometimes real and sometimes fabricated, to make sense of the fear and uncertainty. It's become almost predictable. If something major happens, Nostradamus will be trending shortly afterward. Pop culture has also embraced him. He's been featured in films like The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, countless documentaries, TV specials, and YouTube videos. His image, mysterious, bearded, writing by candlelight, is instantaneously recognizable. Even people who know nothing about his actual text know his name and associate it with predicting the future.
Oh.
Modern self-proclaimed modern self oh man
Stutter.
Modern self proclaimed prophets and conspiracy theorists often mimic his style: vague language, poetic structure, symbolic references. Why? Because it works. It works, dude, because you can use it in so many different areas of life.
Yeah.
Just how they were saying, one person sees it this way, one person sees it that way. People misconstrue how he looks at certain things and his predictions. It makes sense. It's so
Modern
vague that it could
problems
work in
require
all different areas.
solutions.
It's bizarre. Um, the more ambiguous you are, the easier it is for future generations to fit your words to their events. That's actually really well said. I figured I'd try to go better on it, but Nostradamus set the template for modern prophet propaganda. But perhaps the most telling thing is his ongoing influence isn't proof that his prophecies were accurate. It's proof that humans crave a sense of control and narrative, especially in uncertain times. Nostradamus provides that not by revealing the future, but by giving us words that can reshape to fit whatever future comes. So, we're about a half hour in, and we're coming to our closing. You got anything else you want to add before I hit us with a closing?
Um,
I think it's interesting. So I'm gonna, while he's looking, I'm gonna get into the fact that how vague his writing is. I was wondering, and I think it'd be a really cool thought experiment for today's day and age. What if there was someone, right, who tried to nowadays do predictions like Nostradamus, but he made them very vague. You know what I mean? Kind of like how he used to write and writes in that way, and then posts this book. Do you think people would read it and look at that person as the new Nostradamus, or do you think that they would look at him and be like, "You're a charlatan. You're a psycho. You're a crazy man"? I think something like that might work nowadays,
I
dude.
don't know. See, because I think a lot of people just like to follow. So I feel like a lot of people once somebody says, "Oh, this motherfucker's crazy," everybody's just gonna label him like crazy and weird and
Okay, so look at it like this, right? Because there's people who are like, "Oh, I'm a time traveler." You ever seen those people on the internet? They're like, "I'm a time traveler, and this is gonna happen in this year."
nobody believes that shit.
There's people that follow them though. Okay, what if you say, "I'm not a time traveler, but I've been researching history, and I have some predictions." And you start really setting some predictions down, but they're vague as hell. You know what I mean? And you just write a bunch of predictions that are super vague, and you write like a small book. And then you not even you post a video, because nowadays people aren't going to read a book. You post a book, and then you also do a video, and you talk about your predictions. I bet you if you got enough people watching, people would start to look at you.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Talk to me. Why?
Cause man, a lot of people just follow that shit. It's like they're not really like free thinkers for themselves anymore. A lot of people just go with what the next guy says.
That's exactly why I think it would work.
I don't.
There's a lot of people that just follow silly ideas. Like, look at the flat earth community, dude. Like, look at the people who are like, there's a lot of conspiracy theories that I definitely see as possibly happening. Like, maybe we didn't go to the moon, okay? Maybe we didn't, all right? But there's a lot of them that are ridiculous, and people follow it. I bet you if you really propagated your bullshit as a Nostradamus type figure, it might catch. And then one vague thing happens, like maybe AI comes to life, and you're like, humans will create something that will be like, it will vastly change the way life happens. That could be fucking anything. That could be the wheel. That could have already happened. You know what I mean? You just be vague, but then AI comes around and it's like, oh, Spazzy Bazzy was right. He was right. He predicted. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I feel like, it's anybody could make a prediction like that, Like,
that's what I'm saying. But you just make a bunch of them, and then like 3 out of 5 come right, and now you're the guy. It's a cheat code.
Yeah, but a lot of people also want to be like that guy. So like how many people?
Yeah, but everybody right now is going and doing like the thing, like I said, where they're like, I'm from the year 2055, and I came back from the future, and aliens are gonna show up in 2 years, and there's gonna be an earthquake in Japan, and like they just start listing all this shit, and it's like, dude, what? It's like, first of all, you're not a time traveler. Calm down. You're not. You're just not. Like, you're not. Because that would mean that there would have to be somebody with a time machine right now. You can't come back. You know what I mean? Like, if there's no time machine to come back to, you're not. You're a liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. I'm going to close this because I want to get some food. So closing reflection. Nostradamus was a man of his time, a physician, astrologer, poet, and observer of the world around him. He wrote in a way that combined genuine study, creative language, and cultural influences. His writings are less about literally predicting the future and more about how people interpret uncertainty. I'm sorry. His verses became mirrors in which each generation saw its own fears. The real story of Nostradamus isn't just about prophecy, it's about our human need to find meaning, to see patterns, and to believe that someone, somewhere, might have known what was coming all along. Thank you guys for watching the podcast, because we didn't have anybody join the live stream today, but that's cool because I know we're gonna have some people watching in the future. And I hope you enjoyed our first guest podcast. We have not had a guest yet. We had Nate on today, and I appreciate you being here. Um, and hopefully in the future we'll have more people on, and we'll have some more topics and some more beautiful videos. I love you guys. Peace.